Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the AMD Dota 2 Premier League Season 2 finals of the non-Southeast Asian qualifier. This is a match between FXOPEN Esports from Korea and Double Trouble. I'm not too sure where they're from, but they're obviously not from Southeast Asia. And that is something you can take away from this tournament match. But FXOPEN have been looking pretty strong in the non-Southeast Asian region. They've been winning, from what I've gathered, pretty much non-stop. So they're looking to get into shape, and of course, as you all know, the next on Dota 2 League in Korea is going to start up relatively soon. So FXOPEN got to get into top form since they did get a couple of North American players towards their team, and they are looking to be the favorites heading into the next on Dota 2 League in Korea. But so far, these are very standard picks and bans as far as bans go, and FXOPEN, it really depends on them if they want to ban the Wisp or not. I mean, they might not fear Double Trouble's Wisp, they might have a game plan to deal with the Wisp, but usually people just like to ban the Wisp. But it seems like FXOPEN going to ban the next assassin, and in the Eastern scene, teams don't really like to favor Treant or Wisp as highly as they do in other regions, like in the West. So these bans, not too surprising, although it has been a while since I've seen Nyx banned out in the first opening phase. So Double Trouble now get the first pick. We're going to have to see what they decide to go for here, as usually Darkseer is never really a bad idea to pick up as a flexible option if you do not want to get one of the overpowered heroes left in blue. They're going to get the Weaver, definitely an atypical first choice, and we're going to see if FXOPEN decide to counter. They're going to pick up the OD. Will they pair it with something like a Treant to make Weaver, or to make OD impossible to gank? No, they're going to get a Tinker as well. So a really interesting draft already, as you don't usually see these two heroes being drafted up almost immediately, as these bans and picks are taking no time whatsoever. Teams are just flying through them, so this means that they had these heroes in mind before they even sort of looked at the picks or bans. And OD, unless, I don't know what Double Trouble decided to do to go up against mid lane, they themselves will try to secure themselves a Treant Protector. Keep in mind that this version of Dota is played with a patch, I do believe, so that means that Treant's living armor is not as powerful as it used to be, although as you level it up, it'll become more and more powerful until it regains its sort of overpowered nature. But at that point, level 7, hopefully your team has enough levels where it can surpass a lot of the living armor damage block and damage instances. But Double Trouble got to take a bit of time. Weaver against heroes like OD does not function that well. Against Tinker, it's a different story. But I don't know if FXOPEN will try to challenge Weaver in the lane. I'm not too sure where Weaver will be laned at this current choice. He can be laned in a variety of different situations. Usually you don't see too many offlane Weavers these days just because he does like to have items as well as farm and some levels in order to start doing some work in the mid stages of the game. But Weaver is one of those heroes who naturally been into Lincoln's here, and that can annoy Hex carriers like FXOPEN currently has. Double Trouble going to secure themselves a key for the light, so a very stable support in the competitive scene. A hero that gives them a lot of turtling power, a lot of chasing power. Well, not really chasing power, a lot of turtling power, a lot of pushing power, and overall helps out lanes with the Chakra Magic, allowing heroes to spam their abilities. So it's really difficult to call the lanes thus far. If I had to guess, it'll be a Keeper of the Light defensive tri-lane. I'm not too sure whether Weaver will be mid or not, but if OD's mid, then Weaver really doesn't have a chance in heck of beating the OD at his own game, since at a certain point OD will just drain all the intelligence from the Weaver, and Weaver won't even have a big enough mana pool to spam Shikuchi, and at that point OD can just wreck face. And of course OD's base damage is always going to be a bit higher than Weaver's, so I'm not too sure what Double Trouble will decide to do to go up in the middle lane to deal with OD. A couple options for heroes is the Lone Druid. Lone Druid functions reasonably well against OD. Also, heroes that don't rely on mana, whether it be, I don't know, something crazy like a Razor. I think Razor does do pretty well against OD because of the static link. But I don't know if Double Trouble will want to pick up the Razor since he doesn't have an innate to say, well, I'm just theory crafting, and I do love me some Razor. So FXOPEN gonna get rid of the Treant. A smart decision, so they themselves did not want to get the Treant, and they didn't want to deal with the Treant Weaver combination that is so very annoying to deal with for a lot of teams. Meanwhile, Double Trouble banning out a lot of supports, recognizing that FXOPEN currently do not have the support in the book. They're going to get rid of the Chen, so they don't want to prevent any early tower pushes, and they're going to get rid of the Rubik as well. Rubik makes sense because Shikuchi is one of the easiest spells in the game to steal. It's pretty much impossible for a Weaver to consistently hide it. and Chikuchi just gives Rubik so much extra mobility and makes Rubik very difficult to actually kill down. So Rubik, a very, very sensible ban by Double Trouble. The problem is that this will most likely be either safe lane or mid lane OD in a 1v1 matchup. I can't imagine this will be a trial lane OD, so FXOPEN could potentially run an aggressive challenge with Tinker, could potentially run an aggressive challenge without Tinker, and I'm not too sure if Double Trouble's lanes will be adequate enough to handle, as the new pick ban phase means that after the second ban phase has ended, the team with the last ban goes into the next pick immediately. So a pretty interesting way to go about it, but I guess that means that the team with the first pick no longer has the last pick. It's instead the team with the last pick that has the first pick.
10 seconds.
That didn't make any sense. The team with the second pick gets the last pick instead of the team with the first pick, so I do apologize. It is very early and I'm very hot and sweaty. No AC in my room makes me a very unhappy camper. But FXOPEN taking a bit of time deciding what they want to actually do with this choice. They're going to get themselves a Shadow Demon, one of the most versatile supports in the game. Double Trouble going to get themselves a Darkseer. Again, nothing too out of the ordinary. Darkseer very versatile, and FXOPEN needs sports versatility and is a very, very common candidate for that role. FXOPEN could potentially go for an aggressive challenge with Shadow Demon and Tinker, although Tinker is not really the best aggressive challenge hero. He can function reasonably well. Double Trouble, they have a lot of survivability if they do decide to go on the defensive, and I have to think that this will be, I don't know, mid lane Darkseer I think can function reasonably well against an OD since it can just stand back and spam Ion Shell. So if this is a mid lane Darkseer, then that could do quite a bit against OD. FXOPEN gonna get themselves a Juggernaut, so they're gonna get a little bit pushing going their way, and this is a clear indication that FXOPEN do want to go on the offensive because they have a triple core, and not everybody will get enough farm if they run a defensive challenge and they just sacrifice the hero to the offlane. So FXOPEN gonna run an aggressive challenge. It's probably gonna be a Juggernaut, Shadow Demon, and one other support because Shadow Demon Disruption into some setup stun into Blade Fury just can melt any hero in the game, whether it's Weaver or not. And if Keeper of the Light is caught in position, then that's just not gonna be pretty for that old man.
Reserve time.
So Double Trouble, we're going to see how they lane this because right now their lanes are lacking. One thing that is a problem for FXOPEN is that until they get the Hex Online, they don't have any reliable ways to lock people down outside the Disruption and Astral Imprisonment. Double Trouble going to get themselves a Jakiro, a common support pickup for a Darkseer team, just because you can vacuum into Ice Path, do a lot of AoE damage, and just prove to be very, very annoying. But I'm a bit worried about Darkseer or Jakiro's presence in a defensive challenge since he's so immobile, and if a disruption is casted on him, you can cast Ice Path, but Juggernaut will just spin right through it. But I guess we'll see if Jakiro can be successful, as I'm still unsure on how DT will currently lane it. They could put the Weaver in the defensive challenge, they could put also Weaver in a 1v1 matchup in the safe lane. I think Darkseer is the best candidate to go mid, but I mean, I don't know if DT realizes that. I think they might switch him to the offlane. We're gonna have to see, as this is very difficult to call. Meanwhile, FXOPEN getting rid of a lot of strong mids that can potentially contest OD, even though I think OD does do very well against likes of Queen of Pain Puck. Maybe they're worried about the side lane matchup for the Tinker, and if that's the case, then these are some smart bans. But FXOPEN, their last pick, gonna be a support. Might be a Lina or a Leshrac to get that secure stun after the Shadow Demon Disruption, and I think FXOPEN are all in Korea training, so I've got to imagine that they have some good communication in setting up some disables, and they've probably practiced with the Shadow Demon Leshrac / Lina combination a million times, to say the least. So I am expecting Lina or Leshrac. Leshrac was banned, so Lina or Lion seems like to be very likely candidates, and Lina does give FXOPEN a lot of burst damage, which they are lacking pretty severely against like the Weaver. So I think Lina does make a lot of sense, and there goes the Lina choice. Meanwhile, Double Trouble, they could potentially pick up a trial and carry. They could also potentially pick up a mid lane or an off lane hero. A lot of the suitable mids have been eliminated from the pool, so I'm not too sure what DT will actually choose, but whatever they choose will help to define their lanes, as I have to think that this will be a defensive challenge Weaver, just because Weaver is probably one of the most survivable carries, although in the early game Chikuchi does have a long cooldown, especially if Weaver is limited in a trialing capacity. So DT going to take a bit of time thinking about what they actually want to do with this choice. They're going to get themselves an Undying. So I guess this is going to be a trial in Undying to try to zone out FXOPEN. I'm not really too sure what to make of this Undying choice, as Undying, he's strong in the mid game. He does synergize pretty well with Darkseer because he can vacuum into Decay and then get the Tombstone and really limit the other team's movement. But Undying is a hero that I'm not a huge fan of as support in Trilance, just because the only way he can zone people out is with Decay, and Decay doesn't provide any slow, it just does, you know, a good amount of damage and makes Undying very, very tanky. But if you have a good position, you won't really get more than 2 people clumped up in a single Decay cast. And I mean, at a certain point you can just dive past Decay, and Undying can't really do anything about it other than right-click it out. So I'm not the biggest fan of Undying in a Trilance scenario. If this is a solo lane Undying, if it's a farming Undying, I've become a bigger fan, just because I think Undying is more useful in the early stages of the game. If he's put as support, then he really doesn't get the levels he needs in order to really dominate the mid-game with his Tombstone. So, teams like Empire run Undying in a Trilance successfully in the past, but those days seem to have faded ever since Undying's Decay was nerfed. So, it's been a while since I've seen Undying win, and I don't think he's the best hero in a Trilane matchup. But I think he is going to go into the Trilane for this game, and we're going to see how effective he does fare. So introducing the players and the teams on the side of DT, we're going to have 123 playing the Weaver, Zoom is playing the Darkseer, very appropriate, as Darkseer of course has the Surge, Naughty is playing the Keeper Light, Punk is playing the Undying, and Nazi is playing the Jakiro. Me on the side of FXOPEN from Korea, we're going to have March from North America, a player from one of the older Dota 1 versions of EG, also I think played in the US team for the MYM Prime Nations Cup a couple times. Anarchy is playing the Shadian. QO is playing the OD. Febby, a North American Dota player from NA Dota, gonna be playing the Tinker, and SA Gun is gonna be playing the Lina. Keep in mind this is another presentation of the AMD Premier League Season 2. I am B-Ballin, formerly of DotaCommentaries.com, now a free agent on the market, so hopefully you enjoy this presentation, hopefully you stick with me. Shouts to Dota Talk and AMD for putting on this tournament, and shouts to all the sponsors, as I should probably switch the screens before the game actually starts. Most of my casts are replay casts, so I'm not really accustomed to live streaming too often, but hopefully I'll get the hang of it very, very soon. But this is going to be likely an aggressive Chan with these 3 heroes. Going to put Tinker in the safe lane to deal with a 1v1 matchup, and I'm going to put OD in the mid lane. Meanwhile, on the side of DT, Darkseer will go into the off lane or the mid lane. I think it would be smart for him to actually go into the mid lane, and he picked up Iron Shell level 1. So this doesn't really give any indication, but I think he will go to the mid lane because you want to save your skill point if you go into the off lane. Just in case, even though there's likely going to be aggressive Chan, you always want to save the skill point. So if you do have to lose a level to Surge, you can get it out of the way. Although if you do get a point to Surge, then you really can't get any creep presence on the map. So Darkseer getting that point to Iron Shell, picked up 3 branches, and looks like he is saving up for a fast bottle. So he is going to go to the mid lane, and I think Darkseer fares reasonably well against OD just because he can stay very far back, and if OD tries to go up into range for an Astral Prison, he'll inevitably eat a couple Iron Shell damage. And in the early levels, I mean, Darkseer Iron Shell doesn't do that much work, but as the game goes on, Iron Shell will become more and more powerful, and even though OD's Astral Prison scales to a similar degree, still, if Darkseer just minds his positioning, he shouldn't get too much intelligence stolen from him. And Darkseer's pretty strong in mid lane just because he can push out this mid lane quite hard, get the experience needed, and then while the creeps are fighting under the tower, you can just go to this small radiant creep camp and just clear out the creeps very, very easily, or even potentially stack either of these 2 neutral camps, so you can clear it up very, very easily later on. So I think Darkseer is a pretty solid choice for a Radiant mid lane for the most part. I mean, he functions really well as a Dire mid lane too, even though this creep camp is a bit further to get away to. Meanwhile, it's gonna be a Weaver offlane, it looks like, as, I mean, these aren't the traditional offlane items. He was pulled a Salve, so I gotta think he is gonna go into the offlane position to try to deal with Tinker. I'm not too sure who has the advantage in this matchup. I imagine once Tinker gets a couple points into March, it becomes very difficult for Weaver to actually harass with the March machine since Weaver's stats are abysmal. But until then, Weaver should have a slight advantage, especially once he gets that point to Gemini attack. So it really depends on the player skill in regards to the Weaver vs Tinker matchup. Beyond the bottom lane, dying Jakiro Keeper Light, a very defensive Shrine. Gonna have to play very defensively against the very aggressive Shrine that FXOPEN has currently concocted for themselves. So Juggernaut actually looks like he's headed to the top lane for now, so it might actually be a Tinker Shrine. Well, I don't know. This movement is deceptive since it hasn't even passed the 1 minute mark in terms of time elapsed and in terms of the game starting. So this Juggernaut might just be going for a casual stroll, then switch out his laning presence towards the bottom lane. I think it will be a Juggernaut bottom lane for this game at the very least, since I don't think Tinker will function nearly as well compared to Juggernaut and aggressive Giant scenario. I mean, yeah, you can get the stuns and stuff and do a lot of damage with the laser as well as Rocket, but Juggernaut is a more survival hero since he has that magical immunity, and Tinker wants to get those levels online. He can definitely make greater usage of those levels. He managed to get fast level 8 or so, depending on what build he goes. So I think this will be a side lane Tinker up on the top lane. Juggernaut, I guess he's just going to go for a casual stroll towards that top lane before he swings around to that bottom lane. DT, no flags. Bit disappointed. I mean, obviously the first sign of being a professional team means you've got to have a flag. But DT, probably not a professional team, probably just a group of friends that are playing Dota. Keep in mind, this is the qualifiers to get into the main tournament, I do believe. So, both teams just looking to do their best. Of course, FXOPEN have additional pressure since they are the favorites in Korea to do quite well in the Nexon Dota 2 League, which has a ridiculous prize pool. So, while we wait for the pause, I'm just gonna say I'm BBallin703 on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. If you want to follow me there, I upload daily Dota 2 casts and even some Dota 1 videos from time to time, whether it be Dota 1 heroes who are not in Dota 2, taking a look at them, or just maybe a casual Dota 1 cast here and there. But those are very infrequent these days, but I do upload daily Dota content. So, subscribe to me on YouTube if you do want to support me. Also follow me on Twitch if you are a new viewer. And hopefully we'll get into this game very soon. Shouts to AMD, shouts to Dota Talk for partnering with this tournament to allow it to continue. Let me just check the overlays really quick. Oops, a bit of a misclick. But now the overlays have been switched, so you won't see that annoying overlay clouding your screen. So, I'm not too sure what we're waiting for, and as so far as the early game is concerned, IDT, what I'm a bit concerned about is how they actually lock FXOPEN in place. FXOPEN don't really have the most mobile of lineups, but once these heroes get BKB, there's really nothing that IDT can do to touch them, unless they fight in the choke point and they get the wall, and FXOPEN just runs through the wall over and over and over and over again. So, yeah, FXOPEN, they have a magically immune hero in the form of Juggernaut. Tinker can potentially go for a BKB, but I mean, that's not going to be like it until he finishes at least the dagger as well as the hex. And I think Febby, he's played in the North American scene long enough that he probably knows to go Blink Dagger first. I mean, Weaver can potentially annoy Blink Dagger Tinker with the Swarm as well as Shikuchi. Still, Blink Dagger is most likely going to be the likely candidate for the Tinker, at least for his opening item after the Boots of Travel in this game. But yeah, FXOPEN, they have a bit more disable as Undying is going to reconnect. Well, they don't really have a bit more disable, but they do have 2 natural hex builders. Meanwhile, DT, their only natural hex builder is Darkseer, who doesn't traditionally rush hex. He likes to get mech, he likes to get maybe a Force Staff or a Dagger if he wants to have team fights or allow teammates to escape. And yeah, he doesn't really like to build a straight up fast hex. Meanwhile, OD, I think he will see a mech OD because which other hero on the side of FXOPEN will pick up the mech. So I think mech will be secured by OD. He'll go for Force Staff, then into Hex or BKB, depending on what he sees fit. Although Hex is usually preferred for BKB before so OD can actually deal out some damage, and then you have to respect his DPS output in team fights. Meow Lena, just with a set of wards. We're gonna see, did she pull anybody anything? Looks like OD was pulled a couple sets of regeneration just to allow him to handle himself in the lane. And OD versus Darkseer, I think they do anticipate the OD going up against the Darkseer, and OD will need a lot of regeneration. Might be forced into getting an early Tranquil Boots purchase, but this regen should allow him to see him through the majority of Darkseer's early game DPS. And once Darkseer does manage to hit level 5 and level 7, whereas Ion Shell truly becomes a huge problem, then OD might have the Tranquils at that stage. So this regen should allow him to see himself through a lot of the early game harassment the Darkseer will inevitably throw his way. Naughty on the Keeper of the Light. Darkseer going for a regionless build knows that it's pretty easy for Darkseer to get 150 gold to farm up his fast bottle and then just continue to bottle. Even if OD does do a good job denying the creeps up against Iron Shell, Darkseer can just rotate into this range jungle, clear out these creeps, and get his bottle online. So DT's him definitely in a very comfortable position as far as lanes go. And meanwhile, DT gonna go on the offensive themselves. Undying is a pretty offensive Trilon hero, but they're gonna have to rely on Keeper of the Light and Jakiro lighting their abilities. And we'll see if FXOPEN realize this sort of situation. I guess they probably have a sneaking suspicion with the Undying choice that the side of DT will potentially go on the offensive. So I guess this will be an offlane Juggernaut rather than any aggressive Trilon, and they're just going to defend the Tinker. This is a correct response to the Undying choice. I probably should have seen it coming, but I'm very, very tired. So you're going to have to excuse me for that. So Juggernaut versus Weaver, this should definitely be in Weaver's favor by a huge degree, but Juggernaut has a lot of regen. He has a salve as well as a set of tangos, has a stout shield, might build into a poor man shield, but this lane is going to go heavily in favor of Weaver until Juggernaut gets his bottle, which might not even be an option considering the bottle crow nerf for the offlanes has been very, very severe. And OD is a hero who doesn't really need bottle, but he might need it up against a matchup against Darkseer in the middle lane. But if this aggressive challenge for DT does not work out, their supports will be extremely underleveled and they'll just be absolutely free food for the heroes on the side of FXOPEN. So this is a bit of a risky play. I would have preferred going into a defensive position so you can get some free farm on the Keeper of the Light and then just abandon Undying or Weaver to the offlane position and then maybe force a rotation by FXOPEN. But we're going to see Anarchy drop the disruption. Here comes Ice Path, going to be cancelled a couple times. DT Punk will get stunned position. Lena is actually quite isolated, but the missile's going to fly, and Keeper of the Light will give up first blood. Tinker comes in with the missiles as Decay does manage to hit. A couple more hits will mean the end of Lena's. Actually, the creep does manage to secure the last hit for the side of DT. Still a good engagement being secured by FXOPEN. Tinker got the first blood, gonna allow him to pick up the boot speed or the bottle, maybe even get himself a fast soul ring, and that'll allow him to spam out DT into Oblivion, counteract the Undying Decay harass with his own annoying harass. Darkseer gonna get the ball shipped towards him. OD handling himself very admirably in the mid lane, only burned through one tango, but this match will get more and more annoying for OD, especially since Iron Shell has been leveled up. On the bottom lane, Weaver is going to have a very big advantage over the likes of Juggernaut, especially as he increases in levels, since he can just dodge out of the way of any potential Blade Fury harassment. And, I mean, there's really not too much Juggernaut can do unless he gets a bottle or a Paraman shield up very, very soon. But so far, FXOPEN doing a very nice job in their trialing, and DT did not approach the trialing very aggressively, so they weren't able to plant any wards to block out the movement of FXOPEN. Here comes Light Strike Ray and the Soul Catcher do a lot of damage. March Machine's just tearing through the Jakiro, but Febby gonna take the fall here as Undying doing a lot of damage to this Decay, and that was why Undying was such a trendy pick about 7 to 8 months ago for Empire. He does do a lot of residual damage, and if you don't have enough burst damage to kill him off, he's going to be very, very difficult to bring down. But so far, FXOPEN, they did lose to Tinker. Undying has not yet died, so Undying is doing a reasonable job, but Tinker did secure himself the first blood, already with 12 gold in the bank, so it seems like he himself does not really know what to get as his first time. He'll probably pick up boots and then decide whether he wants to get Soul Ring or a bottle before making his full decision. On the bottom lane, March has secured himself the poor man shield, has now got that crucial point to healing ward. Interesting enough, he got an extra point to stats rather than getting an extra point to healing ward, but he wants to get a bit more survivability. And level 1 healing ward in terms of lane harassment is pretty much all you need. And it doesn't seem like FXOPEN very intent on pushing in the early game, so he doesn't really need to max that healing ward straight away. Because, I mean, FXOPEN, this is not a pushing lineup by any means. Darkseer taking a bit of time to clear out these neutrals, and that means he's going to miss some lane experience. Looks like he only missed one lane creep, so not the biggest deal. As me on the top lane, Febby, how many decay stacks has he taken? Not too many, as the only going to find just barely lifts the Tinker, and that is going to be the rotation that FXOPEN waiting for. Anarchy is going to burrow his way into the trees, drops Soul Catcher onto Jakiro. Soul Catcher, or Disruption from Soul Catcher going to fall off. Dragon Slave Missile is just going to do a heck of a ton of damage. Smart Machines will cover FXOPEN's retreat. A nicely executed gank. They waited for the Illuminate to whiff, and then they went in, so they wouldn't take too much damage. So good timing recognition by FXOPEN. And you can see their supports are starting to get very high level. Keep it light level 3 himself, but Jakiro is going to struggle a bit, and it's going to be very difficult for his supports to catch up once they get behind in terms of experience, unless they're going to struggle a bit, and it's going to be very difficult for his supports to catch up once they get behind in terms of experience, unless they rotate somebody towards bottom lane and just get some creep pulls going. Boots of Tranquility, aka Tranquil Boots, have been secured by the OD. Gonna drain a bit of mana since Darkseer very intent on root controlling. I don't know if Darkseer is going around the lane matchup the best he possibly could do, as, I mean, he could potentially creep skip and just plant himself right here in between the two towers, and there's not too much OD can do about it other than do some physical harassment. Instead, he's just going for a lot of ricing, as Mion Jakiro doing a lot of damage to Lina, as Disruption Soul Catcher combination seemingly was tried to be executed on Keeper Light, but it's a lot more difficult to go on Keeper Light when Jakiro can just throw out a defensive Ice Path. And March doing a good job using the healing word to stay himself in lane against the likes of Weaver. And you can see in the last hits, Juggernaut actually with 18 last hits is not faring as badly as I would have suspected. On the side of FXOPEN, their supports are running out a bit in terms of mana. Shouting is actually completely out of mana, and that is going to force him to retreat back to base, but he has picked up that level 4 to get that level 2 into Shadow Poison, just doing a bit of residual damage. He's alone on neutrals, and they know it's very difficult for DT to actually kill off the Tinker unless they manage to catch Tinker completely by surprise with an Ice Path, since, I mean, Ice Path is their only stun. So as long as Febby's positioning is correct, he will have those boots of travel up, and it seems like he is saving straight into those boots of travel, so he can just teleport himself to and fro from base and get himself those levels, spam those rockets, and really just annoy the side of DT to no end. But the healing word has been killed off on the bottom lane. March gonna just man up under the tower and tank that harassment for now, as Ragram was scaled at level 6, not something you see every day on Tinker, but since he is going to go straight to boots of travel, this is a smart decision.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
We are going to see a smoke attempt by the side of FXOPEN. Weaver is he level 6? He's level 7, so he can potentially time-lapse unless the stuns are absolutely perfectly timed. So this is going to have to be a very well executed gank. Here comes the Disruption. Will essentially be planted. He is in tower edge, but looks like the Light Striker was just a bit mistimed, but the Omni Slash was enough to secure the kill. Nicely executed by FXOPEN. I mean, not the best execution, since Weaver was able to get Chikuchi off still. They were able to get the kill. That's what they came for, and that's what they got. So FXOPEN already with some strong movement, and now Darkseer back in the middle lane, gonna get himself in prison. You can see OD surpassing Darkseer in terms of farm, which I shouldn't think should happen. But I guess these fast trinkets really doing a number, and Darkseer running out of mana very, very quickly. And this is why, even though you do get Bottle in the middle lane, you might actually need a Soul Ring on Darkseer as well, just so you can have the continuous mana to spam his abilities. As Darkseer is staying very far back, notice that the supports on the side of the Dire are missing, and he is just going to stay as far back as possible. OD doesn't have any followed up damage. He has the Sandy's Eclipse online, so if there isn't enough damage to throw on the Darkseer, he can follow up with the Sandy's Eclipse. And Tinker, he can be left by himself. He has his boots of travel. That's what he really needs. And if he stacks these neutrals, he can just clear out these camps very easily with the March Machine. So he doesn't even need to stay in the lane necessarily. So it seems like FXOPEN have a solid grasp on the early stages of the game, which DT really need to get a firm grip before going into the stage, just because I feel like their late game cannot simply match up to FXOPEN unless Weaver does manage to get ridiculously farmed, which unfortunately for the Weaver, he is getting farmed, but he did also give up a kill. Now the healing ward push is going to go down to the middle lane. We'll see if DT going to respond with the push of their own on the top lane. But it's going to be incredibly difficult pushing into the likes of March Machines. And you can see instead DT rotating towards the bottom lane while Weaver continues to farm up. Weaver, do you have a TP scroll, my friend? You do. So if there is a mid lane fight, Weaver can potentially get himself back into thick things. March taking way too much damage, but is magically immune. And again, the lack of stuns on the side of DT allowing March to escape relatively easily. Here comes the Iron Shell Essence. Tombstone was dropped. March Machine's going to cover the retreat of FXOPEN as now Darkseer is out of mana, doesn't have any mana to surge on out of there. So if the stuns are layered, Darkseer will definitely die. He's taking so much damage. Saints Eclipse is going to be used as well, but that is going to be just a lot of small blows being exchanged as DT Zoom was chakra up, so he did get a bit of his mana back. Saints Eclipse was expended, a pretty long cooldown to use, but in the early stages of the game, it's not really the biggest deal in terms of DPS. You know, Weaver, I'm likely going to go for the Lincoln Sphere build, very traditional build. Weaver, you can see OD going to make his way towards the mecha, actually disassembled his Strangles in order to pick up the treads, so he can get a bit of extra stats for his Saints Eclipse, get a bit of extra HP in case he does get ganked, and he of course will have that initial part for the mecha because of that Ring of Regeneration being disassembled. As here comes a bit of harassment onto OD, just taking as much damage as possible and increasing his own mana pool. As this is a traditional OD build, some ODs prefer to skip Saints Eclipse at level 6, but it seems like OD knows that teamfights are breaking out, and that's why he did pick up that early point into Saints Eclipse just to try to do as much damage as possible. Now on the bottom lane, Febby's starting to get very, very farmed. Is going to pick up his soaring very, very quickly at this rate, and I don't know if DT can do anything to stop it, as meanwhile, seems like DT going to just spot the wards. We'll be able to get a counter ward for the most part very, very soon, although it seems like FXOPEN are able to get their own counter ward as Light Strike will hold Keeper Line in place. Meanwhile, OD going to survive the gank attempt, but Darks are going to come in. Will he be able to get off a vacuum? Again, without the Jakiro stun, there's really nothing that can hold FXOPEN in place, and therein lies a fatal flaw with their strategy. As, I mean, FXOPEN, they don't really mind being limited in terms of experience because they have the better late game, and they have the better split pushing as well with the Tinker on their team. So FXOPEN, the Light Strike Guy gonna hold Jakiro in place. Astral Imprisonment gonna use to stun Jakiro up. Gonna allow Shadowdean to get in position, drop a Soul Catcher as Nazi gonna be in a lot of trouble. Gonna take a lot of damage. Dragon Slave gonna be used, which Shadowdean does pick up last hit with the poison attacking on Tinker. Gonna cover his teammate's retreat with the March Machines. Eliminate. Gonna barely whiff, and that actually forced a rotation by Undying towards middle lane. Eliminate some of his farm, and it's gotta be up to Undying to make a lot of things happen. But what is the skill build? 3 points of decay, no points in sword, 3 points into tombstone. This is not even a traditional support Undying build. I'm not too sure what to make of this. He did pick up a fast arcane boots to allow him to sustain the decay, but every team wants to have a bit of soul rip damage, or soul rip in order to heal you up, because it just costs so little in terms of mana. And if you do go for a fast level 7, if Undying is your main farmer, I'm actually a big fan of maxing tombstone by level 7. Personally, just because it's so very tanky and it's very difficult to fight under the range that Tombstone gives you as it gets leveled up. So I have to disagree with this Undying skill build quite strongly. I mean, the fact that he has no points soul rip, I mean, already does mean he made a mistake. And meanwhile, the tower push is going down onto the bottom lane. This team is also very annoying to push in against because they have been where they have the March Machines to zone out people. Disruption will be used on bottom lane, but Darks are going to come in with the Iron Shell. We'll get the vacuum on as well as Nina is completely out of mana. Nina will likely die, but here comes Saints Eclipse as we were going to be held in place by the Astral Imprisonment. OD is going to take a lot of residual damage. OD does have to be careful as Juggernaut's going to slice and dice. Was he able to pick up a kill? He was able to kill off the Keeper of the Light. Undying, he did already die, so Tombstone has already been killed off. OD taking a lot of damage, going to go back on defensive for the Jakiro, but the mechanism by the Darkseid came in at the right time, and it seems like FXOPEN just overplayed their hand as Tinker looking to escape on out of there. Will he be able to escape? He should be able to escape, although Darkseid getting his mana refilled has the vacuum to now disrupt Tinker. So Tinker was able to kill the Jakiro, but did give up his life in the end, so a good defense by DT. And you see the strength of Darkseer with this fast mecha just proving to do a lot of damage, as OD going for a weird item build. Gonna pick up a headdress as well as staff, so just trying to cover all of his avenues. The Taker actually bought back in order to continue split push, force rotation on the top lane, and pressure the tier 1 on the top lane a bit more heavily. He has all his core items. Now he can start building his way towards the dagger. But that fight was very much needed for the side of DT. Still, I'm not too sure if they can do anything off this. They don't really have the strongest pushing teams. And Weaver, he was able to survive. He did pick up the treads. Darkseer was able to survive as well. Gonna definitely benefit a lot in terms of the experience. But you can see he's only level 10. Did not get any points in the wall. I think the 1 point to wall at the very least by level 10 is needed in this situation when the team is just going super aggressively in your face. So you can just get that stronger team fight going if you do have to sacrifice a point into vacuums. Here comes the Disruption Gang. Jakira will drop the Ice Path, trying to zone out FXOPEN. March taking a lot of damage, gonna use the healer to bring up his HP as OD taking a lot of damage as well. Unfortunately, for the side of DT, the Illuminate does barely lift as OD gonna be able to escape. Laguna Blade gonna zap Undying to oblivion as Anarchy likely will be the sacrificial lamb for FXOPEN, as though Darkseer gonna wrap around, will pick up 1 kill onto the Lina, and now QO in a lot of trouble. Weaver just does simply not care about the OD, as now Weaver is unstoppable, picks up a triple kill, and Juggernaut and Tinker are the only survivors. So that team fight very, very messy, but FXOPEN, they're playing super aggressive against a lineup that does function pretty well on the defensive. They have Darkseer, they have Undying, and they have Weaver. A lot of heroes that do function very well on the defense situation. And we're going to see that teleport by the Tinker get immediately cancelled. Instead, we are going to see a Revolt teleport by the Shouty, looking to zone people out with the Shadow Poison, as Ice Path will be used to cover DT's retreat, but DT have been doing a nice job getting themselves right back into the game. And checking out the experience graph, you can see the gold graph slightly favor the Dire because of the tower being pushed on the experience graph, now favoring the Radiant after those teamfight victories. And these kills are the utmost importance for Weaver because he's not farming anymore. And he really needs to get some farm going for his Lingots here because, you know, inevitably Tinker will build up towards the Hex. And the OD will build up towards the Hex as well. Storm going to be used. Going to catch Febby as here comes Engage. Aspen in prison will hold Darkseer in place. Can they lay the stuns appropriately? Tombstone going to be used to ward off the approach by the side of FXOPEN, as there's just all havoc breaking loose. Darkseer taking a lot of edge, gonna pop a mecha, but he is gonna get killed off. Weaver gonna die as well, as Lina somehow barely managing to escape with 5 HP. Oh my god, so many eggs were thrown into the Lina basket and just did not pay off, so FXOPEN gonna take a huge victory thus far. And Juggernaut, or Shouty, actually picked up the kills on the Weaver, so not the biggest deal because he's not gonna make the best usage of that gold. But still, the fact that Weaver died and the fact that Darkseer died, 2 of your primary farmers, is not going to bode well for the side of DT, and they lost their tier 1 tower as well. You can see Tinker is able to farm multiple lanes. DT constantly forced to defend against the mass push coming in by FXOPEN. And now OD, he's going to finish the mech before he goes for the Force Staff, and with that mech, that's going to mean that FXOPEN going to get a lot more effective HP online.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
You know, Tinker, probably saving up for the dagger, very traditional Tinker item build. And it's just gonna go to work. The tower is now in deny range. Rain don't have the glyph, so this tower will likely be last hit, and Rain are not positioned unless Weaver does manage to get a deny. No, Juggernaut is able to pick up the last hit. Juggernaut, 2300 gold in the bank, not too sure what to go for. Might go for Vlad's, might go for drums. Likely gonna be some form of pushing teamfight oriented item. Although if he wants to pick up a point booster and go to a fast Aghanims, that could help him out as well. He definitely wants the HP as well as mana to allow him to spam his abilities. Well, maybe not the mana so much with an OD on your side with the Essence Aura. But now the mecha is going to be finished for the side of the Dire. And that's going to mean that their teamfight suddenly gets a lot better. And Darkseer, still no points in the wall. Maxing Surge, this is very unorthodox because even if you do skip wall by level 11 or level 10, you do always get a point to wall by level 11 because at that point teamfights are breaking out. And I think this wall would be very useful because you can see everybody inside of FXOPEN, I mean, they weren't fighting with the mecha, but they were so low in terms of HP just from the Undying as well as the Angel spam harass. And if the illusions are coming in, or if the wall managed to do a bit of extra damage, I think that could potentially turn on a teamfight engagement. But you can see FXOPEN gonna rotate in for Roshan. and they're going to apply the medallion, as it seems like they're now where they saw the Tinker rockets come in, as the March machines will cover Roshan being taken, but the HP pool on the side of FXOPEN are still very, very high with the Healing Ward. And we'll see if DT going to look to engage. They're going to drop Illuminate, but this should be not the best idea, as Aslan Prison going to hold Keeper Light in place, and Juggernaut actually secure himself the Aegis. Not really the most obvious choice, but I guess they think Juggernaut could potentially die, so he's going to secure himself the Aegis, and is still holding on to around 2.8k gold. Engaging is breaking out. Darkseer doing a lot of damage to OD in the background, but here comes Tinker with the dagger and drop Marching Machines. Darkseer just getting zapped into oblivion. He couldn't surge away because the illusions of the Shadow Team were actually trapping the Darkseer in place. And now DT looking very, very confused, as they're in a desperate situation, as Nazi just going to be able to escape, as we're going to see a rotation by FXOPEN towards the bottom lane, and they are starting to get their momentum rolling. Darkseer still unable to pick up that level 12. He really needs that level 12. Why do you need 3 points in a surge? 2 points is usually enough in most scenarios, especially in this scenario, because I guess if the Shadow Team's going to purge, he's going to purge anyway. And there are pretty much only 3 stuns, as there's a bit of lag. I'm not too sure what end that's coming from. I don't think it's coming from my end. This path will be dropped because the other Lina just going to escape the majority of the damage, and this is going to be very difficult for DT to defend, but they're going to have to get a spectacular defense since they have lost a lot of momentum, and Weaver just not firing, has not even secured himself the Perseverance, and that means the Legions here are going to be heavily delayed at this rate. Tinker sits in farm in multiple locations, going to secure himself the Force Staff rather than going straight into the Hex. So he's going to go for mobility rather than straight up damage, as here comes DT. We'll get the vacuum, but there is no wall, and that means a lot of the DPS will be mitigated. Omnislash will be dropped by the Juggernaut, as Shakiro will be the first one to die. DT 123 being held in place, likely going to get killed off, although he does time lapse away to safety, as Lumin's going to fly in. Zoom going to be on top. Zoom will die as well. Undying Tombstone simply just not doing enough. And I've got to think if they had a point to wall, they could have actually been able to pick up at least one kill.
Middle tower is under attack.
So I don't know if DT are necessarily playing that well. I mean, they're playing okay. Their decision making, however, I'm not the biggest fan of in this game, as Tinker will just teleport out to safety, regen his HP as well as mana, and Weaver knows that it's going to be incredibly difficult to defend the tower. Instead, will look to secure himself from some farm on the top lane, get himself the Perseverance, and then maybe try to have some fleeting ambitions of getting himself the Legions here as well. Juggernaut actually picked up the Shallow and decided to go for the gem to lock down the Weaver. It seems like FXOPEN is looking to end the game ASAP on the back of this Aegis claim, since Juggernaut did not go for any sort of G5 pushing builds, instead went for a Shadow Blade. But FXOPEN, I still think that if this game goes long enough, they will have the better late game. And Tinker's smart rotation is going to get the creep camps stacked with these March machines. And so far, this Tinker is going to be playing really, really well. OD only level 11 has the Force Staff secured. We'll be able to do a bit of additional damage, and you can see the Dire spotting out the movement of the Radiant with this nicely placed Observer Ward. And Lina going to be able to secure Invisibility and is out of mana. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get any Essence or procs. Shadian, a bit luckier, has been able to get some form of Essence or procs for himself. As Tinker, Lina will have to go all the way back to base. Tinker actually went for a Dagon rather than Force Staff, so I guess he just knows that his team needs damage. Maybe this is a sign of disrespect towards the side of DT. But Dagon is usually not the second item you pick up after Dagger. You usually want to get Hex or Force Staff to give yourself a bit of survivability, as Dagon a bit too mana intensive. But Tinker, quite frankly, knows that he can't be locked in place unless there's an Ice Path or Vacuum, so he can just teleport freely once those two spells have been used, and that means he can get himself in and out of the fight very, very easily. And you can see Darkseer now has a point to wall, but I've got to wonder if this is a little bit too late. Checking out the goal graph heavily in FXOPEN's advantage. DT have yet to claim a tower. Experience graph also heavily in favor of FXOPEN, since they've been winning the last couple team fights, and since Tinker is just free farming all across the map. It seems like FXOPEN actually just taking his time to farm up. Are they getting close to any major items? Not looking likely, as Tinker is going to actually upgrade his Dagon. So this is just a sign of disrespect towards DT, because I think Dagon 1 would be sufficient. But Tinker just knows he simply cannot be locked down with DT's current lineup, so he can actually teleport away freely, regain his mana, and just go to work with those Dagons. You know, FXOPEN looking to make the most of this stage. He's going to go work on one of the last tier 2s on the side of DT's map. And they are getting the healer dropped, the creeps being decimated, but they will heal up to an appropriate advantage. Still, the hero is going to do enough damage to the tower, where, I mean, it is backdoor regenerating to a certain extent, although the creeps have surpassed it. And Ice Path will hold March in place. March taking a lot of damage, but he does have the Aegis, will get killed off. Gonna respawn with full mana and full HP. You know, still left to sustain the OD, while March just continues to go to work on this tower. But here comes Surge forward by the Darkseer. Gonna get a nice vacuum. Only gonna get a couple people on the wall, as where is the backup approach by DT? Undying trying to get in range to drop a tombstone. Actually, tombstone was already expanded. Lina gonna zap Weaver into oblivion. Undying taking way too much damage, as OD might be the first one on the side of FXOPEN to die, as Darkseer will be slowed on. Iron Shell still continuing, as March gonna just run right next to the Iron Shell. Not too sure what March is thinking, as Darkseer is going to pick himself up a free gem. Meanwhile, Anarchy in the backlines was able to kill off the Jakiro. Tinker still continuing to do work, but Darkseer is still alive and kicking, as the Shoudian will drop, but unfortunately for the Shoudian, the Dagon can be used as well, as Darkseer will be dying. FXOPEN once again going to reclaim the gem. His Omni Slash going to be slicing and diving the Weaver into oblivion, going to time-lapse just barely away to safety, but now he's going to allow to hold the gem still up on the side of FXOPEN since Tinker did reclaim it, as Weaver's looking to Scotland out of there, should be able to escape. And everything's said and done, a very sloppy teamfight being taken by FXOPEN. Still, they managed to come out ahead because of their superior experience growth, as well as their superior item advantage. Weaver getting close to Lincolns, but still needs some damage. OD did die, so he lost a little bit of gold. I'm not too sure if he bought back. I know Juggernaut bought back. Looks like FXOPEN want to end the game ASAP, or at least get the last tier 2 before they get the second Roshan, then end the game. Gonna secure the last tower on the top lane in terms of outer towers, and Weaver gonna have to run on out of there. He is gonna be able to pick up his Lincolns before FXOPEN can actually end the game, but the impact that Lincolns has in this game is going to be questionable, as Tinker is going to continue to upgrade his Dagon. Dagon is doing a lot of damage, but you can see Tinker just running out of mana very, very quickly with this very, very aggressive item build, to say the least. Oh, and I actually forgot, Dagon mana cost actually goes down as you upgrade it. I think that was implemented a couple patches ago. And, I mean, that is going to help him to spam the Dagon a bit more effectively, as Zoom will be spotted out. Not going to be initiated on just yet, as Shoudian is not in range for the disruption, as Ice Path will be used to catch Lina. Backing will suck Lina back into place before Staff will allow Lane to escape to safety. Storm not being used on the Lina, as Lina should be able to escape. The Astral Imprisonment is going to be used to zone out the Undying, going to drain a bit of his mana. His Earn is going to be dropped to bring Lina up to a sufficient amount of HP, and the Healing Word will mean that she gets up to full HP very, very quickly. So the tower going to be brought down by FXOPEN. I've got to imagine FXOPEN will just wait for the next Roshan before they look to end the game. They might do a couple pot shots here and there, but they won't commit for this tier 3 mid just yet. And that is going to allow DT to get themselves the Lincolns, and now Weaver can start playing a bit more aggressively, although he still has to watch out for the gem, which is currently up on the Juggernaut still. And I don't think the Shotblade is working out well for the Juggernaut whatsoever, because he's constantly with his team. I think Drums or Vlads would be a much better option, or even Aghanims, because Shotblade gives you attack speed and damage, but if your HP is just consistently being brought down, if you can't actually get any right clicks up, and you're not split pushing with the Shotblade, what is Shotblade going to do for you? Not too much. You know, DT playing so scary. They currently have no wards on them just because FXOPEN are continuously pushing creeps onto the side of DT with the Tinker, and they're just farming everybody's jungle. So they're going to have an immense amount of map control. Although the smoke attempt will be used by DT trying to get themselves back in the game. Roshan going to respond in 30 seconds, so this is an appropriate time to smoke up Anarchy. Definitely going to die, although he is going to force that himself away to safety. Will he drop defensive disruption as Zeta will be used to cover Shao Demon's retreat. Storm going to be used on Shao Demon as well. As here comes the approach by FXOPEN. Anarchy looks like he is going to escape at around half HP, still taking a bit of Storm damage. Gonna get mech'd up as well. March gonna come in, gonna kill off the courier. I don't know if it's delivering anything as March is in the launch. Sands Clip's gonna be dropped. Punk gonna immediately die, as well as the Darkseer. Darkseer did get off the wall, couldn't get it off the vacuum, and Febby doing a lot of damage in the backline to the March machines as well as the missiles. Seems like Keeper Light was able to secure a kill on the Shao Demon in the end, and OD is having a lot of trouble against like the Weaver, as Omni Slash will be used to slice and dice at the Weaver, but Weaver just gonna time lapse away to safety, as another buyback gonna come through by the side of FXOPEN, I do believe. I don't know who actually bought back. Looks like the Shao Demon bought back since they want to take the Roshan. And I don't think DT can actually contest this since they don't have the wall up. Darkseer is still dead. And the creeps are pushing into their base all the while.
Ooh, they never miss.
As Tinker, this Dagon 5 just going to work. And he knows he can teleport out for free essentially. Just because there's no disables canceling this Tinker Boots of Travel. And this is a second pick Tinker, so DT had a lot of time to deal with this Tinker choice. And they still only picked up one hard disable and one sort of pseudo disable in the back. Meanwhile, OD gonna get himself back in the mid lane, has picked up an ultimate orb. He's died a couple times in these fights, only 1 in 4, but he's still getting a lot of gold from these towers as well as the Roshan that is coming in imminently.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
FXOPEN, I think they need to get a Vlad's and then they'll be able to break the base. They need the extra armor, and the lifesteal definitely wouldn't go unappreciated either. And I don't know if the Rain Courier actually had any items when it's being shipped out. But Weaver has Lincoln's now going to be able to start building into some damage, and he really needs to be the rock on which DT can rely upon. In order for DT to actually mount a comeback, it is going to be tricky for FXOPEN to reach the base, reach the high ground, because they're going to be fighting in a choke point against a Darkseer and Keeper and an Undying and a Jakiro combination. A very annoying line to push in against, but they don't really need to necessarily push in right now. Even though they went for a bit of an unorthodox build, they can just farm up everywhere on the map. And DT won't be able to keep up in terms of farm because they won't have control of their own jungle. FXOPEN can farm all the lanes, farm both jungles from the Ancients, and DT can't really farm nearly as much. It seems like FXOPEN intent on ending the game ASAP. March gonna secure himself an ultimate orb, so gonna get himself a bit of stats. I still think Vlad's or Drums would be much more useful in this pushing scenario, and I think DT can defend this. But the question is, will they defend this? Or will they be able to defend it? D in a bit of trouble as the Courier gonna respawn. Juggernaut gonna charge, and he has the Aegis online, so he can't afford to take a bit of damage. Undying couldn't get off any of his abilities as he just got absolutely massacred by the Omni Slash. Ghost Scepter is going to be used by the Tinker to get himself to safety, as he is going to go straight to E-Blade. Very, very disrespectful, as Jakiro is going to get killed off either ends of the Shadow Poison. Tinker just going to blink in blindly as GG will play is called by the Undying. And FXOPEN going to take a very, very decisive Game 1 victory. So DT definitely have to be wondering what went wrong. Well, I don't think their picks really matched up well. They had, FXOPEN picked up a Tinker with their second choice, and they had nothing to stop the Tinker from just boots traveling away. And that allowed Tinker to go for this very unconventional straight up Dagon 5 rush after the dagger. FXOPEN, once they got their pushing going, he just really made mincemeat of DT. DT did have a strong teamfight scenario, but that's why I wasn't a fan of the Undying last pick. If you did give him enough farm, he didn't get enough levels to have that big an impact in the early game. And that cost DT in the end. So DT gonna go ahead into game 2 down 1-0. FXOPEN guy feeling pretty good. 1 game away from securing the qualifiers victory. And we'll see if they will be able to close out the series or if DT can actually respond. Hopefully enjoy this presentation of the AMD Premier League Season 2. I'm VBon, and you can follow me on Twitch for more future streams. I do some pub scrum team streams from time to time. Also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and I upload daily DOTA 2 content. So hopefully you enjoyed that. that. But thanks for watching. I'll see you in game 2 very, very soon. So see you guys.